Bihari. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pavirajakacarya Ashtotra His Divine Grace His Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Gaur Premanande, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, chapter 32, verse number 16. Ye tva ihāsakta-manasaḥ karmasu śraddhayānvitāḥ kurvanty apratiṣiddhāni nityāni api ca kṛtsnaśaḥ ye tva ihāsakta-manasaḥ karmasu śraddhayānvitāḥ kurvanty apratiṣiddhāni nityāni api ca kṛtsnaśaḥ ye tva ihāsakta-manasaḥ karmasu śraddhayānvitāḥ kurvanty apratiṣiddhāni nityāni api ca kṛtsnaśaḥ. Mataji. Ye tva ihāsakta-manasaḥ karmasu śraddhayānvitāḥ kurvanty apratiṣiddhāni nityāni api ca kṛtsnaśaḥ. Ye, those who, tu, but, iha, in this world, āsakta, addicted, manasaḥ, whose minds, karmasu, to fruitive activities, śraddhayā, with faith, anvitāḥ, endowed, kurvanti, perform, apratiṣiddhāni, with attachment to the result, nityāni, prescribed duties, api, certainly, ca, and kṛtsnaśaḥ, repeatedly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: persons who are too addicted to this material world execute their prescribed duties very nicely and with great faith. They daily perform all such prescribed duties with attachment to the fruitive result. Purport. In this and the following 6 verses, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam criticizes persons who are too materially attached. It is enjoined in the Vedic scriptures that those who are attached to the enjoyment of material facilities have to sacrifice and undergo certain ritualistic performances. They have to observe certain rules and regulations in their daily lives to be elevated to the heavenly planets. It is stated in this verse that such persons cannot be delivered at any time. Those who worship demigods with the consciousness that each and every demigod is a separate god cannot be elevated to the spiritual world. What to speak of persons who are simply attached to duties for the upliftment of their material condition. This ends the purport. Om ajnanatimmirandasya jnananjanashalakaya chakshur unmitam ena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to today's Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. So here Lord Kapila continues his instruction, and this chapter discusses about the adverse effects of fruitive activities. And in the current verse it discusses about the disposition of a person who is very much attached to the fruits of one's endeavor, and how he is performing his activities very nicely with great faith. And in the previous verse it was explained how even the great personalities, they are not able to achieve liberation so easily. And in this current verse it talks about what about those people who are materialistic people, who doesn't even or practicing any spiritual life, or who are attached to their results of their fruitive work. When we read these verses and translation, it mentions about the ritualistic ceremonies and people who are interested to go to heavenly planets. But of course, we may not really see all those type of practices in today's age, right? I don't think anyone is performing any Vedic rites to go to any heavenly planets. But still, the principle remains the same, because the attitude of a person, even though whether he is performing Vedic rituals or in the modern setup, whether he is just performing, going to a job and earning money, the mentality is the same. Basically, they are all attached to the results of one's endeavor. So the 2 words used here are āsakti and śraddhā. Prescribed duties very nicely with great faith. And āsakti means deep desire or addiction, and śraddhā means faith. So these are the 2 qualities through which this person performs his prescribed duties. And this is applicable even to the spiritual life also. In the spiritual life, we all practice bhakti yoga. And in bhakti yoga, we have 2 things. We have sadhana bhakti and we have raganuga bhakti. And in sadhana bhakti, what is the main qualification required for sadhana bhakti? What is the main qualification required for a person who is practicing sadhana bhakti? Shraddha, faith. That is the first qualification. Chapter 3 of Nectar of Devotion, that's what it mentions, right? And what about and of course Shraddha, but when you say Shraddha in what? Faith in what? When you say that you require faith in practicing sadhana bhakti, but faith in what? Faith can be of many types, right? Faith in what subject? Exactly, faith in the scriptures. That is why the further verses classifies a sadhaka into 3 categories, right? Kanishta, Uttam, Madhyama and Uttam Adhikari. And the classification is based on what criteria? The criteria is based upon one's understanding of one's philosophy and being able to present it very well and having strong faith in the scriptures, right? And the exact word used over there is Shastra Yukti. That's what Rupa Goswami uses. And coming to Raganuga Bhakti, what is the basic qualification required? Chapter 14 of Nectar of Devotion, it is mentioned there. What is the basic qualification required for Raganuga Bhakti? It is lobha, or the intense desire. So that is a qualification for someone who wants to practice Raganuga Bhakti. So in the same way, here also we can see, even a materialistic person, he also has these two qualities. What are the two qualities? Asakti and Shraddha. So these qualities remain the same, whether you are practicing material life or spiritual life. One has to have the deep desire and faith and attachment to one's work, whatever he is doing. So, and here in this verse, it is stated that those who are too addicted to perform work, to perform their duties very nicely with great faith, so that is condemned, right? So now the question here is that, first of all, how is this verse even relevant to us, the practicing devotees, right? And what is the lesson we can learn from these things? Because as a practicing devotee, we may not be so much invested in our material activities, right? So what is the lesson we can learn? Of course, as I mentioned previously, see, we may not be performing the Vedic rituals as such as people who used to perform in the previous ages, right, to achieve the heavenly planets. But actually, if we carefully analyze ourselves, our disposition, actually even a practicing devotee has this problem to some extent, to the degree to which a person is advanced in spiritual life. Somewhere I read in Srila Prabhupada mentioning that actually some of his disciples, he was telling that they are going to heavenly planets after this birth. Of course, you may be saying, they may not be performing any Vedic rituals, so how are they going? But it doesn't matter whether you perform exact with Vedic rituals or not, but the Sukriti is there. Just by performing devotional service, there is some Sukriti which is obtained from performing devotional service itself, and ultimately the mentality or the disposition of a person is of that category, and when one leaves the body, definitely he will be achieving that destination where his bhava is, right? So in this way, even though a devotee may not be performing these Vedic rituals, but still there is a possibility that he may end up in a heavenly planet based upon his disposition. And so if we carefully analyze ourselves, or if we just look at our own the congregation, the devotee congregation, so we have devotees of different types, right? We have brahmacharis, we have grihasthas, right? And those who are retired, and all these different people, devotees situated in different circumstances. So one thing what I have observed in this regard is that, see, generally, because see, my service at this temple is that is scheduling the volunteers, right, for the Sunday feast or any festivals or something like that. So I work very closely with a lot of devotees and congregation in this regard. And what I've been observing is that generally when a person before marriage, or when he's a brahmachari, or at least when he's married little in the early stages of marriage, they have a lot of enthusiasm, they have a lot of time, they have a lot of dedication, sincerity, and all these things, and they attend the programs, and all these things are there. But as the life goes on, when a person gets married and one has more responsibilities, or one has children, then gradually it apparently appears that one's focus may be shifting, right? Sometimes a person may be too absorbed in maintaining one's own family and children, that one has to evaluate how that is a person still aligned with his goal of one's life, right? Because that's what happens, because a person, when he is entangled in performing these one's prescribed duties, especially in the form of taking care of one's family, one's job, one's children, and all these things, and performing very nicely with great faith and very great sincerity, there is a chance that a person may lose focus in one's spiritual life, and this is something everybody has to be aware of. And we can see here, that's why Prabhupada says a devotee's life should be simple living and high thinking, right? On the other hand, if you see the modern life, it is exactly opposite to that. It's a complicated life and a shallow thinking, right? I mean, if you really talk to them, and if you really try to understand what these people are thinking, actually there is no real depth in their thought, nor their life. Their life is so complicated, and their thoughts are so shallow. But a devotee life should not be like that. A devotee life should be simple living and high thinking, right? So in this way, Sometimes marriage life, especially the family life, in the previous chapter somewhere, Lord Kapila mentioned, it is like a deep well, right? Grihamanda Kupam, right? So Grihamanda Kupam, what does it mean? What it means is that a person doesn't even know what his ultimate destination is, or a person doesn't even know the depths of his commitment to one's prescribed duties. Because if a person keeps on endeavoring for, to just kind of maintaining one's own family and children with great faith and very nicely, there is no end to that actually. There is no end to it, right? A person may be endeavoring for one thing, but there is always something more or something better he can keep on doing it, right? So that is why as a devotee, practicing devotees also, we must be very careful that not to get into this mentality of over perfection or over commitment to one's prescribed duties, where a person may end up forgetting his real goal of life, right? So that is why you see commonly, whenever, even Radhayatra is coming up, right? So whenever I was scheduling volunteers, I get two categories. Either someone is too young or someone is too old, I don't get someone in between, right? So that should not be the case, right? Because see, our life is an offering to Krishna, right? So for example, when you offer something to Krishna, let's say a flower or a fruit, do you offer a fruit something which is unripened? Or do you offer a fruit which is over ripened or about to get spoiled? No, you offer a fruit which is perfectly ripened, right? So our life is also like that, right? The prime time, the prime, age of our, our lifespan, that should be offered to Krishna, right? Not when we are old and disabled, or when you have back problem, neck problem and all these things and you're not able to do and perform properly. No, that is not how it should be. We should offer the best to Krishna. That includes our life. And when we talk about our life, the best years of our life, right? That has to be offered to Krishna. So now the question here is that now how do a devotee should follow one's prescribed duties, right? Whether you are a devotee or not, prescribed duties are there. You cannot completely avoid that. But so how should we do? Should we not perform it nicely, or should we not have faith in it? How a devotee consciousness should be once for performing the prescribed duties? So actually, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur nicely explains about prescribed duties in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There is a verse over in the Nectar of Devotion where it says how a devotee, even though he is low born in the family of a dog eaters, when he takes up to the devotional service, he gets qualified even to perform Vedic rituals. Right? Everybody remembers this, quote from Nectar of Devotion, right? To that verse, actually Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discuss little bit in depth about the prescribed duties and what is the attitude of a devotee towards prescribed duties. How much faith should he have? Should he have faith or should he have not faith? What do you think? Should we have faith in our prescribed duties or should we not have faith in our prescribed duties? What do you think? Have faith, but it is telling not. No, but this verse is kind of apparently criticizing having too much faith in prescribed duties, right? So sometimes this could be a confusing subject. Should we have faith or should we not have faith? And over there Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments how it should be taken. So if you go to this verse where it describes that a devotee, even though he is low born, when he takes to devotional service, he gets qualified to perform even Vedic rituals. That is a statement. But if you look at practical examples, we don't really see that. It's not very common that where you see a dog eater, when he takes to a devotional service, he is performing some Vedic ritual. You hardly see that. Or sometimes that is why people say that no, actually he gets qualification but not in this life. Maybe in next life he will take the birth in a Brahmin family and then he will get qualification. No, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says no, that is not the case. He gets qualification within this life because prarabdha karma gets destroyed in this very life. Then the question is, then why is he not performing Vedic rituals? Over there, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives three reasons. The first reason why a devotee, even though is low born and even though is qualified to perform Vedic rituals, why is he not performing Vedic rituals? The first reason he gives is that, first of all, he does not perform them because he does not have faith in them. Because most of the Vedic rituals are meant for some material goal. And even though a devotee may get a qualification to perform Vedic rituals, but he's not interested to perform to begin with, right? That's the first reason he gives. Okay, if he's not interested, then what about those devotees who are already born in a high caste, right? Sometimes we see that even though devotees who are born in a high caste, even after they become devotees, they may still continue their family traditions, right? Then they don't really stop. Then why are they performing? And over there, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the example of Janaka Maharaj, where Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, even exalted people continue with their prescribed duties just to set an example for the common people, right? So that's why some devotees may continue, just as a part of the Varnashrama system, just to kind of set an example for the common people. And the third reason what he gives is that, see, devotee in general, he does not want to create in rumors or disturbance in the society. He does not want to agitate the class Brahmana, so he doesn't really bother about performing any Vedic rituals. So, but that does not mean that he is not qualified. No, he is well qualified, but he is not interested, nor he wants to disturb the society. And he just wants to set an example, whatever Varna, Ashrama he is born in, he wants to continue. Anyway, now coming to the point, so over there, you can see an important, of course, he does not mention it explicitly, but one thing you can see over there is that indirectly it is mentioned that actually a devotee does not really have much faith in occupational duties, right? So, because most of these occupational duties are meant for some material benefit, and a devotee does not have as an agenda of squeezing any material benefit from performing these prescribed duties. He may perform it, but doesn't mean that he has a great faith in those prescribed duties. So that is how an attitude of a devotee should be, that even though he is performing his duties, prescribed duties very nicely and all these things are there, but ultimately his faith and belief is in Krishna. It is not in that activity by itself, right? And sometimes we see, like devotees, they may be, some are full-time devotees, but some devotees, they may be working, or they may be going to college, or situated in various aspects of their life. And sometimes it so happens that sometimes people invite you to their event, or sometimes if you're working in office, sometimes you all go to office together, to go eat lunch together, right? And you don't want to say no, but when you go there, it's obviously something, there's nothing what you can eat, right? You may just end up eating some salad or something like that, right? So sometimes it can be seen that it can be, people can understand actually, even though you're trying to be friendly and trying to even mingle with society in general and trying to be nice, just even though you don't want to, but it's just a matter of, duty, just because you're your colleagues or your friends, you may go there, but they'll easily identify that. They'll easily identify that you have no interest in those things. And sometimes they even get disturbed, right? Then why are you even coming here for the first place? You could have just, been in your Hare Krishna temple, right? Or why do you even, come and mingle and not be a part of us, right? If you're a part of us, just be a part of us. If you're not, just stay by yourself, right? And sometimes that's why people see that devotees, to some extent, they act like some kind of, or they exhibit some kind of a hypocrisy. Hypocrisy basically means that you are inside something, but outside you are representing something else, right? So that is why, sometimes it could be challenging, especially doing your prescribed duties nicely and trying to, situate yourself properly in the society, and at the same time not really have much faith in that, not really have much faith in those activities. Sometimes it could be challenging how you implement that. So, but even though sometimes those things are seen as hypocrisy, but we must understand that actually what is a real hypocrisy? What is a real hypocrisy? Or even though you may see the materialistic people, they are well bonded, or they are having very strong, so-called relationships among each other, but actually that is a real hypocrisy, right? Because hypocrisy is not with the devotees. Actually, hypocrisy is with the materialistic devotees. Because ultimately, whenever there is any relationship, right? Whenever there is any relationship between the materialistic persons, what is the relationship based on? What is the foundation of the relationship? Sense gratification. When you say sense gratification, whom are you trying to please? Are you trying to please the other person, or are you trying to please yourself? Actually, that is a main thing. Ultimately, if you understand any material relationship, the center is basically your own gratification. It's your own, sense gratification. That is why, sage Yajnavalkya, in this regard, there is a famous shloka. Of course, actually Prabhupada doesn't really quote this shloka anywhere, but this shloka is very often quoted by the commentators on Vedanta. But of course, the similar shloka can be found in the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, in the Brahma Vimohan Leela, when the Lord Brahma steals the calves, Krishna replaces them with his expansions. And that time, all the mother cows and the mothers, they feel even more attraction to their children. And in that context, this similar verse is mentioned. And basically, it says that Navare patyaho kamaya patihi priyo bhavati, atmamsha kamaya patihi priyo bhavati. So what it means is that, I think I explained in the previous one of my classes also, that a husband loves the wife not for the sake of wife itself, but for himself actually. Or a father does not love the child not for the sake of child itself, but for his own self. What it means is that, for example, let's say that a person gets married and now he has a wife and he loves his wife. It's natural, right? It doesn't matter whether a devotee or a non-devotee. He loves his wife. But now you have married this person, right? But what if you didn't meet this person? What if you meet somebody else? You will still love the same person in the same way, right? And let's say the person you married, you never met that person. You will never you will never love that person because you never know it, right? So you are loving a person based upon the relationship which you are trying to develop that. So that is not an intricate love what you are having to that person. So ultimately it is your identity as a husband and wife, that is driving your emotions and feelings, not the intrinsic nature of a love in that person. That is how material relationships are centered. It's all centered upon one's own gratification. It is based upon what he is getting ultimately. But however, the devotee relationships are not based on that. The devotee relationship, because for a devotee, he sees Paramatma in everybody's heart, right? So when a devotee is having any relationship, that relationship is not based upon some material identity or any bodily identification. It is based upon a spiritual platform, because a devotee sees that each and every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, right? So in that relationship or in that vision, when he has that relationship, so that is not hypocrisy, that is a true relationship, or actually that's a true love, right? So the true love is when you see Krishna situated in other person's heart and you have that vision and consciousness in that relationship. That's a spiritual relationship, right? So in the same way, these relationships what you see in the material world, even though they apparently seem to be very loving or very much having what do you say, a very strong bonding, but ultimately all those bonding is based upon one's own requirements. And when that requirement is gone, the person no longer remains in the relationship. So here in the current verse also, we must understand that even though a devotee situated in this current world and following his prescribed duties, even though he may be doing it very nicely, but ultimately he does not really have much faith in those activities, because he is just doing it out of a duty, a sense of duty, nothing more than that. So ultimately, a devotee, actually there's one more thing there's a verse from the prayers of 6 Goswamis, right? What is the second line from the prayers of 6 Goswamis? It says, Dhira Dhira Jana, right? Dhira Dhira Jana Priyau Priyakarau Nirmatsaranam Pujitau. What it means is that the devotee is just like a ocean of love of God, and they are popular both with gentle and those who are ruffians, right? Dhira and Adhira, right? Because they are non-envious. So this is a relationship a devotee has to every living entity. It does not matter whether a person is Dhira or Adhira, right? But because a devotee is not envious, so that is the true relationship, or that is a true love based upon this spiritual understanding. So today is also actually the disappearance day of Gopala Bhatta Goswami, right? Gopala Bhatta Goswami, as you all know, he is one of the 6 Goswamis, and Lord Chaitanya actually spent 4 months during Chaturmasya when he was touring South India, and he was staying in the house of the Venkata Bhatta, who is his father, and the father has 2 other brothers, right? And Prabodhananda Saraswati is also one of the brother. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami, when he was staying, Lord Chaitanya was staying, he was like his personal assistant. He used to wash his clothes, he used to cook for him, and he was like, taking care of his personal needs. And he almost spent like 4 months with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya, when he departed, Gopal Bhatta Goswami wants to join him, but however he said that he first take care of his parents, right? And also not only that, but actually Lord Chaitanya wanted Gopal Bhatta Goswami to finish his education, the formal education, especially under his father's younger brother, Prabodhananda Saraswati, because Prabodhananda Saraswati was actually a very learned person, and even though he was actually initiated in the line of Ramanujacharya, but because of the influence of Lord Chaitanya, he took on to the worship of Radha and Krishna, and he also wrote many books actually. And when he finished his education under Prabodhananda Saraswati, then he basically went and joined the Goswamis and assisted in their writing of their books. And of course we all know one of the famous book of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, which is Hari Bhakti Vilas. That is one of his main contribution. But other than that also, as we all know, that even though the Shat Sandarbhas, even though the Jiva Goswami has finished it, but actually the original manuscript of the draft was put forward by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. That is why Sri Jiva Goswami, when he starts writing Sandarbhas, first he pays the obeisances to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and he acknowledges his contribution. He says that I'm just finishing it up or reorganizing the work which was already started by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So in this way, Gopal Bhatta Goswami has some contribution to even Shat Sandarbhas also in this regard. So, and we all know he is the favorite deity, the deity of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sri Sri Radha Raman, which is in Vrindavan even today, right? So today, is a good day to remember the work and contribution of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and today is his disappearance day as well. So I'd like to end my class here. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Yeah, you can give Ravina.
Yeah, what do you mean that we shouldn't have any faith in our duties?
Yeah, so when I say not to have too much faith in our duties, what it means is that, ultimately what is the purpose of the duties? Actually, the duties may not be a right word to use here, because the right word, and if you look at the shloka, it says nityāni. Nityāni means nitya-naimittic karmas. It's a technical things, but anyway, so what it means is that every prescribed duties, it is meant ultimately to derive some benefit, right? So that is why that specific duties are performed in a traditional Vedic society. So, but however, a devotee, when it says that he does not have faith, what it means is that he is not really interested in the material benefit of performing that activity, right? Because when you perform an activity, there is some material gain, and when you perform that activity more nicely, then you get more benefit out of that. Just like it's like simple, like if you do your job, you're going to get some salary. But if you put overtime, you're going to get more money, right? So same way, these prescribed duties also, they have some benefit, but a devotee is not very much interested in the material benefit of those activities. So in that sense, that's what when I say that he does not have an ultimate faith in those duties means.
So would it be like when Krishna told Arjuna, do the fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or stress,
exactly. Something
loss
like
or gain, victory or defeat, like that?
Something like that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a nice class. As you were speaking, I was thinking that you basically were saying there's 2 types of religious activities.
Yeah.
One is for material advancement because they perform religious, yagyas and all that to get rich. And then of course there's those that want to do it to become a devotee, to become spiritual. So when you do both of them, you can probably get some benefit from both. In other words, you get a benefit if you just do it for material activities.
Correct. Yes.
But what's really, I think, important is that when you do it as a devotee, you get both things.
Right.
You get materialism, you get what you need to exist, to be happy.
Right.
And then you get spiritual benefit. You make spiritual advancement.
Exactly.
So I was thinking like that when you were speaking, because that's really the goal for a devotee. Everything is manifest. If you're very dedicated and sincere,
right,
you'll get a good wife that's devotee and sincere and happy.
Right.
You live a simple life and you just are satisfied with that, because if you're thinking like a devotee, you're thinking very simple, as you said, a simple living but high thinking.
Yes.
So really the benefit is to become a devotee,
right,
a sincere devotee, and everything will actually come on that principle.
That is true, yes, it's perfect, very nicely said.
Small question and a bigger question. Any idea how old Gopal Bhatta Goswami was when Lord Chaitanya stayed there for 4 months?
He was very young boy, that's what I know. I don't know the exact age, but maybe like 7 years old, something of that age I believe.
Okay.
Because it is mentioned that he did not finish his education. So because typically education is finished when a person is 18 years old, because it takes 12 years to finish the education. So when he said it's not finished, so that he may be just starting the education, I guess.
Yeah, okay. So the other question is, you mentioned how material relationships are based upon sense gratification.
Right.
Right, everybody's interested in gratifying their own senses. So if I'm entering into a relationship with you, and hey, he's just interested in relating with me for his sense gratification.
Correct.
Why would you be interested in having a relationship with me? How do material relationships work? And it was like, everybody's out for themselves, so how is it that how do the relationships work?
Yeah, see, the thing is that it's like, I'm trying to squeeze something from you and you're trying to squeeze something from me, basically, right? So it's something like that. So for example, if I'm a beggar, what can I, if you beg a beggar, what is going to donate? Nothing, right? So same way, so if one has to give something, one has to have something, right? And oftentimes whenever somebody wants something, probably that means that he doesn't have something. That's why he wants to have something. But in a relationship, it doesn't work like that, because if you don't have something to give and if you want something, the same other person also doesn't have something and he wants something, what can both beggars do sitting next to each other, right? So it's always like this, right? There should be exchange, right? One person should be in a position to give, other person should be in a position to take. So in a material relationships, that's why sometimes one person may be able to give something, other person may be taking something. But when a person ends up with both doesn't have anything to take, give and take from each other, then that's where the relationship breaks.
So it's based on give and take.
Something simple like that.
I'm interested in what I can get from you, but if you're seeing, well, potentially I could also get something from him, then there's some basis for the relationship.
Is true. Yeah.
Okay. So last one.
Yeah, sure.
Just a small comment. Prabhupada, I think, once said that, maybe a couple of times, he said that the highest love in the material world is that between a mother and the baby. The mother wants everything, protect, to feed, to nurture, to make happy. That's her whole goal. The mother wants the child to be happy. Prabhupada said that at one time, that was the highest love in the material world.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, because over there is no expectations to some extent.
Yeah, closest to unconditional love.
Correct. Because mother is not trying to squeeze anything from the baby, right? Because so
she'll
that is
give her life. She'll give her
that
life.
is pure. That is pure. Because pure basically means, the mother is already content, right? If you're not content, that you're not expecting anything like that. You are just happy just by serving the baby, right? So that's pure love, because you're not trying to squeeze anything from the other person. And even if that person doesn't give anything, you're still happy because you're content by yourself, right? Something like that.
Another thing is that in the relationship, we should understand that we're living and associating with another devotee.
Right.
That might be your husband or it might be your wife, however you see it. So one should think that, okay, I'm doing service for her or for him because they're a devotee.
Yeah.
And when you serve a devotee, you get benefit from that.
Yeah, for sure.
So the relationship should be based on that principle.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm serving you, I'll do everything. I'll wash your clothes, I'll do whatever, because you're a devotee and because you're my wife or my husband.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that is not a theoretical understanding. It actually shows in the practical, things also. In the practical, your consciousness, your relationships. Actually, there will be a significant impact when that consciousness is changed. Otherwise, everybody is just trying to squeeze the happiness, and when you don't have happiness, then it's a frustration, right?
Thank you for a nice class. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a long conversation with Sanatana Goswami about establishing Vaishnava etiquette. There was that. So I was wondering, the Hari Bhakti Vilas, that was written by Gopal Bhatta, and I thought that Sanatana Goswami had something to do with it.
Correct, yeah. So some devotees say like that. Basically, see, ultimately, any literature, any Goswami has ever written, ultimately it is coming from Lord Chaitanya himself. And he's directly giving the knowledge by telling all the details, or at least he's inspiring them to compose such literature. So, Hari Bhakti Vilas, there is an overlap between Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. In that, but ultimately, it's just Lord Chaitanya who inspired, but the credit is mainly given to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, but ultimately most of the things are actually coming
and Jiva Goswami as well.
Yeah, Jiva Goswami is Satsandarbha. It's not Hari Bhakti Vilas.
Because I thought I heard you say Jiva Goswami. That's all right. I don't want to be too technical, but they were all together associating with each other and obviously sharing everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, definitely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. But some things Lord Chaitanya may not have directly told them, and that is where when they actually researched on themselves and then they composed some literature. It's not that Lord Chaitanya told each and every instruction. Something he told directly, something he just inspired them to do their own research.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. What is the line between pursuing technicalities of Shastra versus just mentally speculating? What point should we keep in mind when we are going deeper into technicalities?
Well, you should have a guru to begin with, right? I mean, because without a guru, then definitely, everything is so confusing, right? So you just need to, first of all, have a proper teacher. That's where I would begin with. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai.